everybody. The Illegitimate Game, Brother Derek. I'm here to discuss part 2 of the idea of I didn't know it was love. I hope you caught part 1. I hope you appreciated it. Please like and subscribe. But this part 2, the second element, I didn't see it anywhere else. That's a common reason. It's a common topic. I hear other people talk about it. It's hard to be this perfect Christian and understand Jesus if I don't see it. Because we're supposed to model it and see it in practice. When you see other people living the way God tells them to live, it makes it easier for you to understand it. It makes it easier for you to follow because somebody else is actually doing it. And we exhibit that behavior everywhere else. When there's a doctor in the family, you want to be a doctor. If you know a truck driver, you want to drive trucks. We spend our entire lives watching athletes play football, basketball, baseball, soccer, and you begin to emulate the thing you watch the most. Because we become what we behold. What you see the most, that's what you end up doing. Like some of us, whether we want to admit it or not, we act like our parents. We really do. Your uncle, your grandma, whoever that person is in your life, you begin to emulate that person. So it's living for God is the same way. If you don't see it the right way, you're not going to do it the right way. And something I know that came over me several times is when God tells me to move a certain way, it don't make sense because, like I said, I've never seen it before. Sometimes God will tell you to do certain things and have certain behaviors and certain attitudes, how to respond in certain circumstances, and it feels foreign because you've never done it and you've never seen it. So if you've never done it before, if you've never seen it before, it sounds unnatural. And once again, you don't know if it's your voice, God's voice, the enemy's voice, your conscience. You don't know what it is. And, me and a friend of mine, we were just talking about mental health again. We have all these voices in our head. And I'm going to repeat this again. I said this in part 1. Do not get your advice from Instagram. That's a supplement. That's entertainment. But your real life stuff, you don't want to get that off social media. Even this podcast, whatever I say, go read the Bible and make sure I'm right. Most of what I talk about is my personal testimony, so I lived it wrong for so long. But I've also done good things for a long time, so I'm somewhere in the middle. Thank God for grace. But I'm talking about my actual life. It's not a philosophy. These are choices and decisions I made in the last 40 years. And I've seen the consequences from it. I've seen the good ones and the bad consequences. So I'm just talking about my life. But all the realness comes from the Bible. And when I got it right, I was obeying the word and I was in my prayer closet. So one of the things that caused me to ignore God and run from God for so long, I didn't see it anywhere else. I didn't see the perfect Christian. I had a lot of, bad experiences with church people. I've seen a lot of preachers say things that I couldn't find in the Bible, and then it's hard to trust people. And another part of growing up in church, especially as a child, is the rumors, people talking, the excuses. Preachers not having any spiritual power. It's just all this charisma and loud music. But when I read through the Bible, I see Moses doing spiritual things. I see David knocking out Goliath. We see Samson and his superhuman strength. We see Solomon and his God wisdom. So when I read that in the Bible and I look out, I want to meet other people who got that same walk with God, that same spiritual power. And when I don't see it, I get disappointed. Just like some of you. You spend years in church, but you don't see nothing but rituals and music and dancing and hucking and bucking and shucking and jiving. You get to a point where you lose interest. And I still remember that time when I got caught up with the Nation of Islam and Farrakhan, because you could actually see those black men become respectable people. You see them wearing their suits. You see them opening businesses. You see them physically healthy. You see them raising sons in order. They walk down the street with their 3-piece suits on. The pants not sagging, the shoes not unlaced. You don't see tattoos on their face. You see respectable men. That's a draw. So if we're talking about Jesus and I want to be down with Jesus, you want to see somebody else emulating it the right way. Now, all of those are good reasons to serve and not serve God, but it's still excuses at the end of the day. Because if you want to know God, you will. You have to want to. That's where it starts. You take that first step, God will show you the rest of the way. So those are all the reasons we have. I've done it. We've all done it. We blame our parents. They weren't real Christians. Some of us come from broken families, so now you don't believe in God because it didn't work in your family. So that's when the bitterness and the anger sets in, the disappointment and the depression sets in. All this negative stuff that we carry as weight, which is also why we have to learn how to pray and let God take that weight off of us. Like, there was bitterness I was living with for many years. I didn't even know it was there. I talked about it in other videos, but it's also something that caused me not to hear God. Because God would tell me to move and I couldn't. That bitterness is it's a dangerous bitter root. And that root leaves you stuck and you can't move. So we have to learn forgiveness. And we have to learn how to remove that bitterness, but we have to expose that bitterness too. You know, it's organized religion. You know, sometimes we view it as slavery because you just obeying and just coming in and out of church like a zombie. But when you leave the building, you want to be able to think. Like when I got saved in 2006, I just kept praying like, okay, God, I'm ready now. I was 28 years old, I was ready. And because I was ready, the teacher appeared. You know, some of us might remember the Bruce Lee saying, when the student is ready, the master appears. When I was really ready to surrender to God, when I was 28, God sent me a teacher. He was a theologian, he knew several languages, he opened up the entire Bible for me, and he actually answered all my questions. And I felt so free in the spirit and free in the Bible. I was actually able to read the Bible and understand it. But I'm saying it again, I was also ready. When I was really, really ready at 28, God opened up every door. So a lot of this is on you. A lot of it. When you're really ready, God really opens that door. So just choose, when are you ready? Like, if you're not ready, what are you looking for? So you have to check yourself. You know, like this church hurt is real. Some people have church hurt. Coming from different religions, different doctrines. I've heard stories about the Jehovah's Witnesses hurting people. We heard stories about Catholics hurting people. We heard stories about the Baptist pastors and what they've been doing. You know, church hurt is real, which is why we have to forgive. And we have to let God identify that bitterness. Because when it's all over and you're on Judgment Day, the only person that's going to be there is you and God. So we have to understand, how is your relationship with God? You know, it's like, why don't we want to do the right thing? Why don't we want to obey? And we have all these excuses, but we have to overcome that church hurt. And all of us got it. I got some. I've been embarrassed in church, hurt in church, betrayed, stabbed in the back, lied on. I'd have people spread rumors about me. But when I kept my eyes up to heaven, God kept reminding me, I love you, I got you. So there's freedom in that. And sometimes, you know, I feel alone. Sometimes you're going to feel alone walking this walk, but that's okay. All you really need is Jesus anyway. So when you're going through that path, God's going to show you who's real, who's fake, who's indifferent, who's scared, who's right and who's wrong, because you're walking with him. And you'll always know who's right, because if you're going the right path, the people on that same path, those are the ones that's following the same God and doing it the right way. So God he's going to let the wheat and tares grow together, and he's going to do the separating. It's not our job to fight all those fights. It's your job to be the best version of you and to take care of your family the best way you can. God overcome that church hurt. You know, and it's God gives us these basic signs and these basic symbols, because when you really get really spiritual and really mature, you're going to realize how basic and simple it is. And God exhibits this in nature. Everything God does in the spirit, we can see it also in nature, because it's the most basic thing that cures everything. It's the most basic thing that allows you to understand God and to see God. But sometimes we look the wrong way because we want to see what we want to see, and we want to see it in the way we understand it. But the Bible tells you don't lean on your own understanding, and all your ways acknowledge God and trust God. Some of this walk is by faith, but we always want to see. So we want to be the right real Christian, but because you haven't seen it before, you don't know it. But we walk by faith and not by sight. So here's the perfect example of this is water. Because God's commandments and laws are the basic, but they control and fix everything. So just look at water. What does water do? Water is the perfect example of God's basic power and his answer to all of our life issues. Water heals the body. It washes your body. If you drink it, it cleans your body from the inside out. There's water in your brain. That's how your thoughts and signals get out. There's water in your muscles. That's where your strength comes from. Because if you're dehydrated, you can't lift anything. Water is the answer to everything. Water can cure cancer if you drink enough, because your body will flush out all the dead cells. Water does everything. It allows your body to grow. It keeps you clean. It removes infections. Water is everything, but water, guess what? Water is also invisible. The only reason you can see it is because it reflects the light off the objects around it. Water is actually invisible. So it's the things but we see all the effects and the impact of water. But water itself, if you really think about it, water is invisible. But it reflects the light off everything it comes into contact with. So you can see its effect. You can see water's power. You can see what water does and what happens when there is no water. Because if you stop drinking water, what happens? You get sick. Water keeps you cool in the winter. No, I said it backwards. Water keeps you warm in the winter because your body raises its temperature and you start getting warm. That's that water in your body getting hot because your brain's telling your cardiovascular system and your endocrine system, turn up. It's cold. And in the summertime when it's hot, what does water do? It cools you down. You start sweating. It's the most basic thing, water. You can cure a lot of your diseases if you drink enough water. You can cure your depression if you drink more water because now your brain can function at optimal capacity. When you're dehydrated, the electricity in your brain stops working. So now your mood shifts and your hormones shift. You can cure depression by drinking water. Some of you don't need medicine, you need more water. A lot of your diseases are because you're dehydrated. Your kidneys, your liver, your stomach, your heart, everything, and you need more water. Some of you don't need all that medication you're taking. Drink a gallon of water every day and watch what happens. Your body gets re-regulated. Well, it's the same way in our spirit life. It's the same way in our regular life. It's the basic things. The way God fixes everything is basic. We make it complex because we're humans and we want to be God. So we created all this other stuff to make our lives better. Just do what God told you to do. But because we don't see it, we don't always understand it. Well, guess what? We don't always see water, but we see the powerful impact of water. We see what water does, and you see what happens when you don't drink it. That's how basic and awesome and perfect God really is. We have all this artificial stuff. Artificial food, artificial medicines. We want to wear makeup. We do all this other stuff to look good and feel good. We got all these, enhancements and steroids. Sometimes you just need water. The most basic thing can solve all your problems. We just have to surrender to what God already gave us instead of trying to do it our human way. Because our human way usually leads to what? Destruction. The things we create ruin our lives, ruin our health, and also ruin the environment. The stuff we create is poisoning the environment because we're trying to make life better. We're trying to outdo God, like God's design wasn't already good enough. For some of us who do follow Hollywood, we all know this famous woman who just died. She was already beautiful, but she just had a child, so she went and had cosmetic surgery and died on the operating table. Young woman. And I've seen pictures of this woman. She was already beautiful. She didn't even need the surgery, but she died. Why are we always trying to improve on God's perfect model? God already did it good enough. We hurt ourselves, we hurt our families, we hurt the environment doing extra. Water's never damaged anything. When it returns to the earth, it just fertilizes the soil. You pour water in the ground, flowers grow. The way God did it was perfect. Everybody wins. And I could talk about water forever. There's so many other examples that it does. But God's way is the best way. But we always don't see it and we don't understand it. Even the pain you endure, even the church or all the stuff you went through that drove you away from God, when you come back, you're going to be 10 times as stronger. Because sometimes that pain was just put there to make you think and to make you stronger. So don't let the bitterness drive you away from God. Don't let the church hurt drive you away from God. Forgive people. Church is not boring. Sometimes the preachers don't have the power you want them to have. But the fact that you're hungering for it means you're longing for God. You want Jesus, really. We just are trained to go to church to find him. But you can find God right where you are. Do that first, and he will send you to the right church. Try to remember, and I'm going to end with this, all the stuff you're complaining about, that you're looking for, that's God drawing you. So don't use that lack and that what you ain't got and what you haven't seen. Don't use that as a reason to quit. God is showing you what you really want, but you have to go to him to get it. So don't say, I don't go to church because they're all hypocrites. No, you're looking at it the wrong way. What you're saying is, I want to see an example of holiness, and God will show it to you when you go after him. I'll end with that. Peace.